all the stakeholders, and you can get into programs that'll help you and train you on how to build it. But that first step is you have to design a business model that is desirable.
When I initially moved back to Pensacola, I had a meeting with Lloyd. Lloyd invited me for breakfast, and I was telling him, man, I still have an idea for the entertainment industry. This is what I wanted to do. He was like, all right, I got Startup on the Blocks. So I need you to start coming to Startup on the Blocks and get a little more information on how to work through the tech ecosystem, and take your idea and we'll get you where you need to go. My company is called The Know, is an app that is streamlining business for the entertainment industry. Yeah, so if you're a musician, what you would do is pretty much jump on the platform, you'll create a profile, but the way we created the profile is pretty much a cleaner way. So now if they want more information about you, you'll connect your social media platforms, your streaming platforms, and that way they can go directly to it. What we also have included is your calendar. So pretty much you can set your days, you can set your price for your days and automate your booking. So initially talking to Lloyd, my idea was all here, it was there, it was over here, it was over there. It was like, all right, Quinn, I get it. You got a lot that you want to do, but we need you to bring it in just a little bit and then work on your pitch, your story, and how you're going to bring it full circle to get people to understand what you're trying to create.
Most of the programs here wasn't inclusive, and so we said we'll focus on helping founders of color. We also start at the beginning of the thing, at the idea stage, whereas a lot of the programs you see here locally, they start after you're up, and that's not very efficient unless if you don't have a lot of money, you can't recover from your mistakes. And the lean startup system, it actually helps you make mistakes faster before you spend a lot of money. You don't actually start building anything until you got customer buy-in.
There was a need for small businesses to bring brand awareness to their business. I see there's a lot of makers and bakers that they're making all of these goodies and these products, but they can't market it, they can't sell it at the same time, and there needs to be kind of like that middleman, that middle person to help bring economic growth to some of the small businesses in Pensacola. So Taste of Pensacola, I came up with that idea during the pandemic when I saw things at that time that Amazon couldn't fulfill. They didn't even have those products, but the local people in the community, they did. And so there was a ton of people coming out saying, hey, I make masks. I'm like, wow, this is amazing. All the local people here that are just as talented that can actually make those products. And so I wanted to kind of showcase who they were. So with Taste of Pensacola, our income streams, we have several of them. We have the corporate America, we do corporate gifting, just regular consumers, different Pensacola natives that don't live here that want to purchase our boxes, like a taste of weddings, distribution. So we also do bulk sales. So for a private airline, if they want some local snacks and goodies on their passenger flights, they will come to Taste of Pensacola and we will source their vendors here locally, and we'll give a small business owner an opportunity to have reoccurring monthly sales. I've always had a really big vision for Taste of Pensacola. I knew that it could go beyond just local. I know that maybe other communities could possibly use the same platform that I'm trying to build. And I always have these big visions, but I never know how to even get there. Where do I start? I know it's more than, there's a lot of technical things behind it. I know there's a lot of research, but that connection, I never had it until, thankfully, I met and was introduced to Startups on the Blocks and was able to just learn more about how to grow it in terms of data. Things I just never thought about, framework, words like traction. There's a lot of things that I just did not know about and language that I need to know in order to get funding for my business. There's just a lot that I didn't know.
I would go to the stores and look online. They didn't have a wide variety of natural hair products about 8 years ago. And the ones that they did have, the ingredients, it would say that they were all natural. And when I would research the ingredients, a lot of the ingredients were not natural. I make everything, my shampoo, conditioner, I have an oil that I make, and I have 2 different separate butters. Like I had some people who were completely bald and grew their hair. It's about giving women their confidence back in their hair. I have this salon and then I have a second salon, and I have my products in about 5 beauty supply stores. So I need a manufacturer to keep up with the demand at this point. Startup on the Blocks has helped my business grow. Send me to different people. I'm able to do different pitch competitions to apply for grants in the community for small businesses. Lloyd's a really good person to connect with. He has a lot of resources here in the community that can help small businesses grow. If you have a product out there and you're trying to go big time, he's the person that you would want to meet with.
So it's really important to have some type of support because 9 times out of 10, most founders start out on their own. And to have somebody that has an idea of how the ecosystem works and is able to tap into other resources and bring back to the community, and that pretty much has encountered some of the roadblocks or going through the same roadblocks that we're currently going through and understands where you're at, your culture and how you respond to things, is a big help because you don't really have too many people that have access to what we have access to here in the community. And a lot of people believe that you have to leave and go to bigger cities to do the things that we're doing here. But I mean, it's one thing to have exposure, but you have to actually know it's here in the community in order to take advantage of the resources. So I get approached and I talk to friends all the time that wants to either start an idea or hear that I'm actually doing the app and wants to know more information about how are you doing it or what's the process, what's the path. I'm like, man, we have somebody here, Startup on the Blocks, Lloyd Richard. And Lloyd is here, he's a great resource to the community and to founders that's trying to learn the ecosystem. So join Startup on the Blocks.
As human beings, evolution is a part of our DNA. But in recent history, no other generation, at least not in this era, had to adapt to an unknown so drastically and in a shorter period of time. But we have, and we continue to. This same generation, through a pandemic, started to better understand the power of our dollar and the impact of our votes. We found it in ourselves to also demonstrate a collective resistance to systemic racism and police brutality. We took to the streets and voiced our frustrations in the form of active protest, not as rebels though, as revolutionaries. In that same breath, in a time when our lives and interactions are now mostly digital, we must continue to evolve, adapt, and find new ways to demonstrate and put our collective power on display to invoke change. For far too long, our lives, our culture, our stories have been commodities for profit to the social media platforms, service providers, and major corporations. With every post, every purchase, every like, every share, we're repeatedly giving away our identity, our influence, and intellectual property in exchange for nothing. Our online behavior is dissected and analyzed, and with the misuse of psychographics, we're baited through our vulnerabilities, all for nothing more than gross financial gain. The greatest act of deception in the social digital world is them convincing us that our priority is popularity in order to keep their priority as profit. We as a collective have to dismantle that ideology. We are valuable beyond belief. We just need to believe it. We've protested, petitioned, and boycotted in the streets, and now it's time to wage a digital demonstration. With the Junta, the mission is to help recognize and reclaim the value and true worth of our digital identities and facilitate the proper compensations for its use. Change won't happen overnight, nor does change happen without a fight. But if we exercise our strength in numbers, come together and commit to the cause, with enough of us, we can stop asking for change and start demanding it. Every install of the Junta app is you signing a petition for change. Let us be the change we need to see in this world, so we can reestablish and regain the value in our identities.
Good afternoon and welcome to Startups on the Blocks. My name is Chris Hendricks, aka Mr. C here from the 850, the founder of Bantucola, the largest Black business directory on the Gulf Coast. And I am your guest host tonight for today's session on Startups on the Blocks. So without further ado, I want you to do me a quick favor. You know what I always ask you to do. I want you to go ahead and get in the chats. I need you to go ahead and let me know that you're live. Tell me that you're here. Say, what's up, Chris? Drop that in the chat for me. Let me know that you are live and that you are watching. And with that being said, that video that you just watched, that last section, that is a video produced by our founder, or a guest founder for tonight, Swale Nunez. And he is going to be joining me here shortly to talk about the founder's journey in actually creating an app that manages identity and access management. With that, there is security, there is the startup costs, there are all the things that are involved. So without further ado, let me bring him on board onto the big screen and let's get started. And while I'm bringing him on the screen, make sure you share this out with your friends, your family. If you've ever considered or wanted to think through the idea of identity and access management on the social web, if you wanted to understand Blacks in technology, Blacks in computer science, Blacks in security, Today is the day that you need to be involved. In fact, if your kids are interested in science and technology, or you want your kids interested in science and technology, and you want to put somebody in front of them that they can see and look up to, tonight is the night that you want them to watch. So go ahead and get them ready. And without further ado, let me introduce you to Mr. Swale. How you doing today, sir?
I am here, Chris. I love that introduction. I love your energy. I'm breathing. My heart's beating. I cannot complain. It's the end of the day here, but listen, you're livening it up, man. I'm hype. I'm excited to be here and looking forward to the conversation.
That's dope, man. I'm glad. Where are you at now in the world of things? Can you disclose the undisclosed location?
Yeah, right now I'm in a dark room. If you don't know, you can guess that black is my favorite color. It's where I go for inspiration. So when I go inside or within, it's usually dark, right? So I kind of mimic that in my creative space. But I'm actually in New York City at the moment. It's my home base.
Good deal. Good deal. And for those of you who are joining us tonight, as you're sharing this out, don't forget to share this out. I'm giving you a few minutes to get ready because this is going to be a great interview. For those of you who didn't know, Mr. Swale was the actual second place winner of the Kukua Institute Startup on the Blocks Idea Demo Days. And so with that being said, man, he was able to win $1,000, become a part of the portfolio companies with Kukua Institute, and build with Lloyd, the leader here, and actually continue to develop his app. So tell us a little bit. I want to give you the floor for a few minutes and let us know. Tell us about Iunta and what this does, and how does this help us protect ourselves online, and then we'll get into your startup journey.
Yeah, I think before you could truly understand what Iunta is as a product or a platform, I think it's important to understand the value that is us and value that is identity online. I think corporate and large entities have done a really good job of disguising how profitable online identity is, and I've gone on a limb and said multiple times that digital identity is the most valuable thing on the internet. And in that video clip that you played, which I haven't seen in a while, but one of the things that I said was the greatest act of deception in this social digital world was them convincing us that our priority is popularity, and they kept their priority as profit, right? So they kind of push this towards this thing about, hey, do whatever you can to go viral, so we can profit off your identity. And I think once we start to realize that there is value in identity, we can, one, take ownership of that identity, and then leverage it to as we interact digitally, right? So Iunta is helping to pioneer this idea of decentralized identity or self-sovereign identity. Gives you the ability to kind of leverage your identity to gain some authority over it, and then again profit from it in whatever capacity. That can be in controlling access, who has access to it, when they have access to your data, and how much of your data they have access to. And it's just being the mechanism through which you interact with the web. That's ultimately what we're trying to achieve, and just finding gateways, again, to leverage identity to make your digital experience better.
Man, that's a mouthful. But that statement that you made, I think, is so critical. They concentrated on the profits while they gave you popularity. Imagine the people who are the most popular people on the web and on social media platforms who set the trends are us, but they're making all the money behind the scenes, right? So, and also your identity now is scattered throughout all over the web. Help me understand how you're protecting that identity and keeping us safe, and actually giving us the power back, right? That we can manage our own identity and actually keep that for ourselves, because it is where the power is.
Yeah. So before we can gain authority and control, first thing we have to do is stop the actual massive data collection that's happening, right? So we have to stop the entities that are in play that are tracking us, how we interact throughout the internet, how we interact with other applications, and how we interact on their platforms in general. And usually they're doing this through the use of their social logins, right? So if you think of I'm not going to call out any single social media platform, but if you think about your favorite one, they always give you the opportunity to log in using their credentials, right? And using their account information. So think of your favorite social media account. So what that does is not only are they tracking how you interact on their platform, they're now seeing the type of apps that you interact with and how you interact with them, because they monitor you on a consistent basis. And they take that information and they leverage psychographics to be able to bait you by your vulnerabilities, right? So then you'll start seeing ads based on your interactions across the web. And that is the thing that we have to put a stop to. So first, we have to stop that. We have to create a mechanism for you to be able to, one, get that same convenience of authenticating into other applications without giving that information over to these entities. So that's our what's paramount for us as a company, that we are privacy first. And what that means is we don't track you, right? We only share the information that is relevant to be able to complete whatever task that you're trying to do. And that in itself sets us apart, right? This ability of transparency, like, hey, this is what's being asked of you. Do you want to share that information? And that's the core of our business model, right? To be privacy first. So that's what we're doing. We're saying, as you interact with other applications, before you start to take ownership, stop the spreading of this massive capture of your data, right? This massive data collection that's happened. And as simple as it sounds, it's actually beneficial, right? But to ask somebody to stop using their favorite social media platform is a tall task. So just slowing down activity, and if you are going to use social media, try to keep it contained, and don't allow them to kind of track you as you go across the internet.
Good point. Very good point. I like that. I like that. Look, if you're watching right now and you haven't shared this out, I see you. I love you. I appreciate you. I need you to go share this out. Go ahead and put a like on this. Go ahead and put a subscribe to the Kukua Institute. If you're watching via YouTube or LinkedIn or Facebook or whatever social media platform you happen to be on right now, we want you to share this out so that other people can become aware. And as they become aware, we retain the power. And that's what we're learning tonight, about how to retain the power in our identity. And along with that, we're hoping to glean some awesome tidbits of how Swale has made it to this point in his startup journey and actually getting this app out the door, off the ground, and into your platform so that you can protect your identity. So do me that favor, go ahead and share this out, and let's get back into the action. All right. So tell me about the founding of this idea. Where did it come from? How did you get to this point to spark this off? Give us a little bit of your background that got you to the point of thinking through identity and privacy as a first-class citizen in your life, and how you wanted to use that to impact the others around you.
Yeah. How far back do you want me to go?
Not too far, but
All
just
right.
enough to let us know how we getting off the ground here.
Yeah. So I had a pretty good stint in corporate, and I think when I left corporate a few years ago, I was the head of developer relations and also the lead solution innovation consultant for one of the top mobile device manufacturers. Depending on who you ask, they'll tell you which one is the top. But yes, for one of the top. And I did a lot of outward facing. I did device launches. I guess the things that are shiny in that particular space. So I did a bunch of commercials. I did on-stage device launches for flagship devices. But it got to a point where I feel like I was more focused on product and profit than people. And I've always believed that your purpose is a selfless act, right? And I wanted to do something that was more geared towards people. And because I was heavy in the B2B space, because that is where I was able to see the impact of technology and see it actually change the world, right? Or save the world. Because there you can build applications for first responders and then see how we can impact society in general, as opposed to on the consumer side, which was primarily games So when I walked away, I knew I wanted to do something with identity, because I was in B2B space, and they're security focused and security conscious. And then because of my awareness of self, and I realized that, hey, how can I take how I feel and the value I have of myself, and then that translates to something digital. And that's when I kind of watched how identity, the play on identity, how value was coming, and how these companies were doing massive data collection and profiting immensely from identity online. And that was the early inception, right? How can we protect identity, consumer identity in particular, because that is the driving force, right? If you ask any of this platform, you search, Web 2.0 is based on user generated content, and who are the users? You and I, right? So it's our identities and our interactions and what we contribute to these platforms is what makes them valuable. So if we take away our usership, they become they're no longer valuable. And once we understand that simple concept, it'll unlock a few possibilities.
Dope. So you being a part of a corporate platform, are you a software developer by trade?
Yes, in a previous life I was.
In a previous life, I hear you.
Yeah.
Right now, you're on your CEO journey. I appreciate that.
You said it, Chris, not me. You said it.
Hey, all good with me. If y'all heard that, if you're watching this, go ahead and put CEO in the chat. Let me know if you're on your CEO journey. Go ahead and drop that in the chat. Type, I'm on my CEO journey. If you're not, just say you need to get on your CEO journey. Type that in the chat. And with that being said, make sure you share this out if you're watching live. If you happen to watch the replay, go ahead and share it out and let a friend know as well. But let us know if you're on your CEO journey. Transitioning from corporate America to the start and founding of IUNTA and getting that launched off the ground, I know you had to have gone through all kind of rigmarole on how to create a startup. So being in corporate America, they don't quite teach you how to, do all the things, right? To wear all the hats. So how did you gain that knowledge, and what were kind of your early experiences in that time frame as opposed to where you are right now?
Yeah. What was interesting is I was able to create the role, my last role that I had within corporate America. And as I mentioned, I was head of developer relations. And what that did was gave me an opportunity to create a space where, one, I leveraged this corporate resources and use it to create opportunities for individuals outside of the company I was working. So what we did, we leveraged our technology and resources to give founders the ability to use that technology to help build their platforms, right? So when we did road shows, we gave startup founders opportunities to leverage those technologies. And that's how I've always had an entrepreneur mind, but that gave me kind of from a different vantage point, interacting with a lot of these startups that were leveraging our technology. And because I was creating a space for them to use it, I got a deeper understanding of it. But I will say, seeing it and actually living it are two different things. Listen, I thought I would have been retired after a year and a half being an entrepreneur and a CEO of a tech company, that I would already bought my vacation home somewhat off the coast of some island and just be relaxing. But listen, it's hard work. And I'm realizing that every single day. But again, I made a commitment not only to myself, to my family, but I've assumed some onus of responsibility to contribute to self-sovereign identity and just taking ownership of identity, right? So, and like I said, it's a something bigger than myself, and I'm committed to it. So,
good deal. Look, if you're watching this, I'm telling you right now, seeing it and doing it are completely different things. You just heard it straight out of the CEO's mouth. And I'm telling you from my experiences, seeing it and doing it are two different things. So the thing that I like, though, that you mentioned is you were able to leverage the corporate world that you were in and actually learn and glean how to position yourself so that when you got in it, you weren't starting from scratch without knowing anything. And that gave you a leg up and start. So I'm interested in the audience here. have you been a part of a corporate world as well? I want you to add in the comments that I've learned from the corporate world. Tell us how you've learned from your corporate world journey before you started your startup phase of your life, right? And founding a company and founding a business. Or if you haven't even started that process yet, make sure you let us know. Now, don't put your company out there if you still work for them. We don't put that out there. We don't need them to know that you finna roll out the door. But just let us know in the comments what that journey looks like. What have you learned from your company that's preparing you from the startup world? And with that being said, if you do have any questions for Swale, go ahead and drop those in the chats as well. Drop your questions in the chat and let us know what you gleaned from the corporate world. So Swale, as you made that journey from corporate world, or that transition from the corporate world to getting out the door, you know how to develop apps, you know how to pull a team together, you've seen the startup world from afar or even kind of close up, and now you kind of dip your toes into that. How did you put together the model of the product that you wanted to offer to customers in the US and really around the world? What was the unique value proposition that you wanted to bring to the table? How did you formulate that? How did you get to that unique value proposition?
Well, I can tell you where it started, because we all have an idea, and until we bring that idea to life and then see how people interact with it, we won't know how valid it is or whether or not it'll hold any kind of value in the real world. And that was a challenge. Mm-hmm. That's a challenge for a lot of entrepreneurs, right? We have this amazing idea that we think is going to solve world hunger, and then when we get there, it's like it actually doesn't do what we want it to do. Mm-hmm. And that was a learning kind of process for me, because what I realized is, as much as identity is important and we are conscious of it, as a collective, we still choose convenience over data privacy, right? The convenience of how we interact with others. I spoke earlier about using your social login, your social media login to log into other applications. Even though if I tell you, hey, they're doing massive data collection, they're tracking you, and they're going to bait you with advertising, and then they're going to do all this, in your head, this is what you do. Yeah, but I can log in easily. And then once you start to realize that, you have to now create ways to be able to still provide the service that you want to provide, but in a way that is palatable for your customers, right? And that was the learning experience for me. I've designed plenty of things in my life, and I'm responsible for a few different brands of my own. So, and I understand the challenges that comes with value proposition, and how do you present it, how do you market it, the go-to-market strategies. But again, you won't know until it's actually in the market and you start to reach out to customers. I'm saying all that to say this: where we are focused today is solving a particular problem in e-commerce and in shopping online. And oddly enough, identity is the thing that can solve that, right? Because of this, one of the biggest challenges in online shopping today is the uncertainty that exists, right? Whether or not, hey, can I put my personal information on this website? Are they gonna steal my credit card information? Are they gonna steal my personal information? Am I getting the best deal? Like those sort of doubt. That doubt exists every time you shop, right? And we're here saying, hey, if we're able to leverage the value that is in your identity and then give you that control, we might be able to alleviate a lot of that uncertainty. And that's that's one of our approaches to data privacy and user data control, and giving the user control. As much as I could tell you that, hey, we are solving self-sovereign identity or decentralized identity, that's it's a bigger pill to swallow if I tell the average person. But if I tell them, hey, I'm making your online shopping experience better, and then you have control, like checkout on demand, whenever you want to check out, it's available to you whenever you need it. That is a better sell to those individuals. And then what I will say, and shameless plug or shout out to Lloyd and the whole lean stack thing, because a huge part of being a part of that uh, incubator slash accelerator program was refining what that pitch is, finding who your customer is, who your users are, and then how you communicate to them, right? Because we all have an idea, but until you're out there in the field, until you start testing this, um, um, you won't know. So it's good to thoroughly understand it, and that process helped with that as well.
That's dope. That's dope. Shout out to Kukua Institute and Lloyd Richard. The whole Richard family is a part of the Kukua Institute, and I am so glad for the rollout that Lloyd has. He's helped develop and build Black businesses along the Gulf Coast. And now, even in New York, their portfolio is going nationwide. And we're so excited to have Lloyd and the Kukua Institute right here on the Gulf Coast. So if you're happy for that, if you understand how awesome it is to actually have resources available to you that you can reach out and touch and are familiar to you because they look like you, they talk like you, they hang out in the same places you do. That's what the Kukua Institute is. That's what Startups on the Blocks is. So look, share this out, find the resources thereby, and please support initiatives generated by Kukua Institute, because they are here building up the Black and African American community along the Gulf Coast and nationwide. So with that being said, I want to keep going into this deep dive. I'm trying to stay out of the security and the tech side, doing the deep dive into the tech, but I'm glad you brought up the problem, because the problem you're trying to solve, right, is kind of the first parameter of that lean stack. And this is something that Startups on the Blocks always advocates, is understanding the problem so that you understand your value proposition that you're bringing to your customers. So you talked about consumers. Do you have other types of customers that you're working with? Like, are there business to business customers? I know you kind of come from that space. You mentioned in the corporate world. What does that look like? How were you able to segment your customers out as you was going through the lean stack and actually finding, right, your voice with the consumer, right? Like the average shopper who may go on, website one versus website two, and then the business world or the corporate world as an actual buyer, a consumer of the product that you're bringing to the table.
Yeah, so we have something that's known as a two-sided network effect, meaning we serve two customers per se. And on one hand, we have the if we go on the e-commerce model, continuing off that, we have both consumers and we have brands. And what we're saying is we are a privacy-first identity platform that we realize the value that exists between the digital interactions between those two entities, right? Consumers and brands. And we create an opportunity for them to connect, partner, and then transact seamlessly, right? And that is important because to this point, the model that e-commerce was built on was brand advertising and then consumer targeting. And they don't, because of that model, we're not equal at the table. What we're saying is if we introduce a new model and we leverage identity to bring this partnership together, we're saying, hey, from on one end, we have brands that want to sell products and then consumers that want to buy products. And then there's this uncertainty and the length of time it takes to do that that's causing so much friction. And we're leveraging identity to kind of alleviate that and make it a more seamless process. So, but it's one of those things where it's a hurdle to overcome. It's like the chicken and the egg scenario. Like, who do you market to? Who do you go to first? And there's different kind of formulas that you can leverage to kind of identify which one to go to first, whether you go get all these customers and then you take those customers to get the brands, or you do the opposite. You get all these brands, and then when the customers recognize all these brands, that's what's going to bring them. But that's another part of the process that we went through with Lloyd and what he organized, because it helps you identify those things, right? And if you're building anything, especially a marketplace of any kind, you are going to face those challenges as well. And it's important for you to kind of do your due diligence, and then tap into your network as well, right? And because again, I said this the last time we met at the pitch. I said, as founders, it sometimes feels like a lonely journey, like we're alone on this. But when we're surrounded by other founders and people who are in the trenches with you, we understand that there's many of us and there's resources we can tap to, there's shoulders we can lean on. And it's important because you don't want to make mistakes that you can avoid by just having a conversation with somebody else. Those are the things that resonated or kind of stayed with me throughout the entire process with the lean stack and what Lloyd put together.
Dope. So as you kind of followed through on lean stack and allow you to kind of refine that pitch process, right? You had it kind of an accelerated, you had a trajectory that you were on before lean stack, and you have a trajectory that you're kind of on after lean stack. What does that look like, right? So you had already launched, you already passed your MVP stage at that point. How did that help you refine that and actually get to what those trajectories look like?
The approach. So how lean generally works, especially in the context that we learned, was you can go to market without actually having a product. But what do you do in a situation where you actually have a product? You can refine that business model, and then two, you can iterate from the existing business model with less resources now. So for me, because I have a dev team, I can easily say, hey, go build that, and it'll take me maybe a few weeks or a month to include, or the lean stack introduces ways for us to accomplish the same thing with less resources, right? And as a founder, especially trying to build a business, you have to remain as resourceful as possible and as efficient as possible, right? You have to maintain this just being lean, because burn is a thing, right? You can lose a lot of money in a short period of time. So it's important that you remain as resourceful as possible and be as efficient as possible with the resources that you do have. And I think that's one of the things that I learned over the course of participating in that cohort, is just understanding that, hey, not because I have the resources that I have to use it. It's important that I still maintain this idea of efficiency as I'm trying to build or innovate upon certain aspects of the business and the platform.
Good deal. So how did you gain your developers, right? So before you got your first or won your first pitch, right? Did you have a product on the market at that point in time? How did you, like, I know you're a developer by trade in a former life, but did you actually do that all by yourself, or did you reach out and have other developers? How did you get to that point? Because I think that's one of the key things you find, especially like Black developers are few and far between, depending on where you live at, right? Yeah. And so when someone finds out you know how to code, you know the difference between C# and Java and JavaScript, and how to compile and actually how to produce something that can actually, be generated or, show up even as something as simple as a website, right, formally, but actually developing or deploying a code that can actually run on a phone, right? That's usually a lot of what I hear. Oh, you know how to code? Can you write a phone app for me? Can you take my idea and put it on the phone? How did you find your developers to actually get to your MVP stage? What did that look like?
That's interesting. Oddly enough, I play sports as well, and then the first developer I onboarded, we actually played football together on the weekends, and he knew I was in tech, and he was relatively new developer, and he said, hey, I just want to be a part of it. I just want to you don't have to pay me much. I just want to be involved. I want to be a part of this thing that you're building. And he was my first. And then as word got out, more people wanted to be a part. So I had a few people that interned as developers as well. And then I had a few senior developers. But one thing you have to realize is, and you're going to learn this as a founder as well, and this goes back to being resourceful. You want to make sure that you're spending your money in the right place, and the lean stack approach helps with this as well, because as much as you're building a technology platform, there's opportunities for you to build that solution with minimal development effort as possible, right? I'm a part of a few founder-related organizations, and I know a few founders who have active solutions in the market, and they built it using no-code, like a no-code platform, right? So they spent no money on developers, and they have a product that's in market today, and they're making money from it. And that's important, because I started off building a development team locally, and it takes a lot more effort, because now I have to get precision. I need somebody who's a iOS developer, then I need an Android developer. Then I realized that they're just both front-end developers, so I need a back-end developer as well. And there's a web component, so I need a web developer as well. And then neither one of them are designers, so then it ballooned into this thing. And then I realized I was spending so much money to just get the product out. But there was it wasn't something as simple as I could use it. For me, it wasn't a no-code scenario, because we were building new technology, which we have a pending patent for. So I had to find resources to be able to pull this off in a shorter period of time. So I outsourced a lot of my development for that reason. So instead of having to pay 2 or 3 or 4 developers, I can just hire a dev shop to do the same thing faster and at a cheaper cost. And that's kind of what propelled me to market faster.
That's awesome. So let me recap what I think I heard you say, because I want to make sure that we get that out the door for those who are listening currently. If you're listening and you're interested in devs, put dev in the chat. We'll keep going down this conversation trail. But first thing I heard you say is, before you spend a lot of money on resources, paying developers, number one, start on paper. If you don't know what the lean stack is, you need to go ahead and Google that now. Go ahead and Google business model canvas, Google lean stack canvas. I want you to also actually go to Kukua Institute.org. That's Kukua Institute.org, and sign up for the Startup on the Blocks newsletter. While you're at it, go ahead and go on your favorite social media platform and follow Startup on the Blocks so you can get in a newsletter, because what Lloyd does is actually put out tons of resources for grants and resources that are available. So that's the first place to start. The second thing I heard you say was look for low code or no code solutions, especially if you're not generating completely new technology that does not exist. If you're creating a custom model for something that already exists in the world, more than likely you can use a low code or no code scenario in order to create it. And you can do it on your own sweat for the majority of that dime, and then actually only parse out the little bit that you don't know. So that's second. The third thing I heard you say is, if you have to go outside, look to hire a dev shop, whether they're in the States or more than likely overseas. You're going to get them a little bit cheaper. And what you'll be able to do is outsource that development, and you basically become a product owner, right? Or a product designer, providing them or feeding them as the product owner the feature sets, what have to get developed. The dev team will actually build to your needs and then deploy that to the actual app stores once that product is ready and you sign off on it. And then, of course, last but not least is hiring a team in-house. But in doing that, one of the options is looking for people who are fresh out of school, who want to cut their teeth, actually find people who will donate their time in that regard, because now you get low or cheap resources available to you to help you flesh out your development or coding ideas. And then, of course, there's a wide variety, but then you have to manage what they know on the front end. There's back-end development. There's also server development and database management, and all of those things that go into that. So before you go to hire your first developer because you happen to know a friend who knows a friend, there are a couple options out there that you should probably start with. Did I miss anything in that, Swale?
No, I hearing you say it, I'm like, did I say all that? So you did an amazing recap, Chris. So thank you.
Good deal. And I do want to shout out Daryl, who's hanging in here with us. And he says, congrats on your patent pending. And he talks about the entrepreneurial skills in corporate, but it's still a leap of faith. I think he's having that leap of faith and hard work as an entrepreneur for sure. He does have a question, though, for you. I want to bring up on the screen and see if we can get answered real fast. He says, Swale, any suggestions on how to protect your product idea when in the dev shop hiring phase? Because, of course, especially if you go overseas, there's a chance that they aren't under the jurisdiction of the U.S., so you can't deal with the same trademark or patent pending rules. I'll say ideas are a dime a dozen until they're executed upon, but I want to hear what you have to say to answer that question specifically when looking for a dev shop and you want to protect your ideas to the best of your ability.
No, you brought up a good point, and that would have been one of my talking points, and I could speak to that a little. But there's ways. We have my lady's a lawyer, so she drafts. I cannot have a conversation with anybody without her drafting some sort of protection on my behalf, whether that's an NDA. Even in our developer contracts, there's specifications that says we own the IP. Everything related to that is ours, right? That's one way. But like you said, when dealing with international, sometimes those documents don't necessarily hold the same strength, for lack of a better word, especially when dealing internationally. But to the point that you just made, Chris, it's like, listen, everybody has an idea. There's tons of I'll just name drop Facebook solutions out there, right? Platforms that allow you to connect with other people and be social and all that, but they're not Facebook. If you look at Uber as it compares to Lyft, they offer the same thing, but there's so many others out there that don't actually make it, right? So an idea is just an idea. As much as you want to believe that your idea is the next best thing, it is not that until you see it through, because there's tons of fallen ideas, right? And I think sometimes we get hell-bent on keeping our ideas secret, and that doesn't help us in the long run. So it's worth the risk, is ultimately what I'm saying. If that's the only way you can get it out, even if they try to duplicate everything, I always tell people, even if I give, because I'm big on design and creativity, and then just us as the uniqueness of who we are and our ability to execute on things is completely different. If I gave you Basquiat's canvas and his paint and his paintbrush, and I tell you to recreate any Basquiat, you can't, right? And I think that's how you have to approach it. Even if you give two people the exact same product to develop and sell, one can do an exceptional job at it and the other can't, right? And I think even I'm reading one of the books from the Lean Stack too, and they talk about a scenario like that where there's two individuals who both had an idea, and in a 6-month period, one was able to kind of take it to market and making money from it, and then another one, a few years in, and nothing is happening, right? So don't be so tied to your idea that you're not willing to risk seeing it come to fruition.
Good points. Good points. I learned about Basquiat from a manager and who's a native New Yorker. I know she's not watching tonight, but shout out. I won't say her name, but she was so awesome. She explained the whole experience behind it. So if you don't know who he is, I don't know how to spell it, but he's a Black artist from New York. Really awesome guy. So look up how do you say it? Basquiat. Basquiat. There we go. Yeah. Just look it up. Tell Google. Tell Siri to go look that up, right? And you'll have a world of experience. But back to that note, one of the things I work with on a lot of people, and running the directory for the past couple of years has put me in a position where a lot of people share information with me, and they want to protect their ideas for sure. And that's where I developed that phrase, ideas are a dime a dozen, execution is everything. And I think you hit the nail right on the head with that. So Daryl, take your idea and actually move towards execution, right? Look, right? Don't put yourself in a position where you feel like you're giving up everything. If you don't trust them, don't trust them. I think that's a good place to start, right? So find some place that gives you some assurance, but your execution on that idea, I think, is going to be the most critical factor in that. And he says, thank you for that insight for sure.
Yeah.
So listen, if y'all are watching, tuning in, make sure you put your questions in the chat. We'd love to hear from you and digging in. Make sure if you have not shared, you go ahead and share this out. And also don't forget to like and subscribe. Startup on the Blocks is the place to be. And if you haven't been here yet, if you don't know, now you know. Startups on the Blocks is in the house. And Swale is in the house. Bantucola is in the house. Let's do this thing. So Swale, what do you want to tell the people around the lean stack process and your product and moving to market? What's something that you would say is a key factor that's important to you that people should actually pay attention to or move towards?
Yeah, I think one, truly know what the problem that you're trying to solve, and then identifying who you're solving it for. I think you can't boil the ocean, especially when people start looking at addressable market. You start looking at, oh, I can make all this money because that's an open space, but you're not gonna get all that, right? You have to start small and understand your niche first, and then if there's an opportunity to grow from that, it'll happen organically. But understand, one, your problem, and then two, who your audience is, who you're solving it for. And this is maybe the third time I'm bringing up Facebook. I think when Facebook was originally designed, it was for college students, right? And they knew who their audience was. And then that became their early adopters and their sneezers, and it grew. It became viral, and then it became a thing where companies started to use Facebook too. And then your grandmother started to use Facebook. So it became more than what they initially set out for. But they started with a niche group, and they knew who their audience was and what the problem that they were trying to solve. So that's one of the things that I would implore for early stage founders. With startups, is like, listen, there's tons of ideas out there. There's tons of problems to be solved, and then be flexible enough to pivot. We have to be honest with ourselves when we really come to a point where it's like, hey, I have to do something different. They said insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different result, right? And pivoting is a huge part of that, and it's commonplace in startup culture. So don't feel too bad. And I'm not saying quit on your idea, your dreams, but know when to adjust. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a significant change. It doesn't mean give up. It just means do the little things necessary to make sure that you start seeing some sort of ROI for all the work that you've put in. But yeah, I think that would be my thoughts on from that perspective.
Good deal. Good deal. Well, I'm talking to my audience right now. I want to see any questions you have. Thank y'all so much for hanging in here with us. We appreciate your time. I hope you're gleaning some good nuggets from this conversation and the focus on, number one, protecting yourself. So please visit Ionta.io. Did I say that right? Ionta.io. Get there. I'm close, right? Close enough.
It works. It works.
I went short. It's Ionta.io. Go visit that and actually check that out. You have the ability to go right on your mobile device, whether you have an Android or iPhone, and actually download and look to protect your identity. In fact, one of the videos he has on YouTube for his platform actually introduces identity and access management. It's one of the first videos there. Cartoon characters, it looks awesome. Some animation, actually with people that look just like me and you, right? So with that being said, intentional, right? Right? That's what we're about here. We're about being intentional. In fact, that's our primary audience. We know plenty of people will watch this, but this is something that's designed and purposeful to be Black-centered. And I'm thankful that you were intentional in choosing that as a place to be and start from. It's you started at your house, right? And then you'll go from there with everyone else, right? Everyone's welcome, right? Everyone's welcome to the table, but you started at your house, right? Which is awesome. All right, let's see what other questions we got popping up in the chat right now. And we will go from there. So I do have one quick question. So talk to me about privacy, right? So I'm a data nerd by default. I'm actually a computer science major myself by default. I actually practice security right now. And so I'm really interested in the thought process around security and privacy in this app. So if I was to download this app right now, right, as a product, right, as a service that's available to me in order to protect my identity, what am I able to do right now? Where are you at in that process with me as an individual, as a consumer, to be able to protect myself right now?
Yeah, so we did a partnership with announced a partnership with Auth0 a couple months ago. So we're now in their marketplace, and then developers can go in and leverage our platform. Pardon me. Developers can go in and leverage our platform to just like you can have login with Facebook or login with Google or login with these platforms, you can now have login with Iuncta. And we focus on, again, data privacy. We don't share your data. And then whenever you see that login with Iuncta on any site, you can use the app to be able to log in, right? Again, we're pioneering this idea of decentralized identity. So whenever you log in, instead of relying on them to log you in, you get a notification on the device that says, hey, is this you? Are you looking to log in? And you can hit yes. If you're actually trying to create an account with any of our integration partners, it'll tell you this is the data that the website is asking for. Are you willing to share this data? And you either hit yes or no, right? And for us, we're just building up our integrator ecosystem. And that's our one of our initiatives for the next few months to build that up. And then, but right now we're heavily focused on the e-commerce side of things. I think we have a great opportunity to disrupt how people shop online in that e-commerce process. And that's kind of what our focus is on primarily. So I'm excited to see what comes from this over the next month or two.
Listen, the first thing I want you to do when you get the chance, if I can get you to put it on your developer's backlog, is to develop a WordPress module for identity, because 1 billion plus people use WordPress. And I'm telling you, around here, everybody using WordPress and WooCommerce and a few other pieces. I ain't saying anything good or bad about it. I'm just saying I know 1 billion people use it, and having that identity and access management piece plugged in where people can have that and it's available to them at no, almost at no cost, basically, or to me, to the person who's developing it, and they can ensure or create a platform that says, hey, we're serious about protecting your identity. We use Iuncta. So if you use that as well, you can protect your identity and then let them leverage that. I think it makes a great place to do that because of how many people leverage and use WordPress for all types of e-commerce based websites, especially for independent things.
Yeah, funny you say that. So our next integration we're hoping to do with Shopify as well as BigCommerce for that same reason, right? There's tons of e-commerce platforms. Like that's where people go for their e-commerce platforms. And if we're able to create an integration for them to seamlessly add our platform on their e-commerce or their retail store, that's a big win for us. So that is our definitely closer up in the list of priorities over the next few months. So it's not as far back as you think.
That's dope. Good deal, man. Magento is my other go-to, but I don't want to call any names out there. Yeah, but yeah, you're in the e-commerce space. So those are my early days. My first my first website that I built on was OS Commerce. I was building a emergency supply product store because we're down here in the middle of hurricane world, right? And so I wanted to offer a platform that provided emergency preparedness products to the Gulf Coast. And it's funny, I sold more products in California and New York than I did down here in the South.
Oh wow,
that was the funniest thing ever, right? Once you get into the data side of it and actually see where people are buying from and how commerce is kind of moving around, how people find you on the web. So. So good deal there. Well, man, I wanna leave you with the last words tonight. How can people find you as an individual? How can people find Iunta, right? The places that they should go to find the app and learn more about you, the product, the company, and maybe even reach out to you and utilize you as a coach.
Yeah. So we're on all social platforms, Iunta. So Facebook.com/Iunta, Instagram, Iunta, Twitter. I think that's the only one we're at Iunta.io. But LinkedIn, same thing. Iunta will pop up. For me, Swale. I am Swale on Instagram. Swale on LinkedIn. And then you any of those channels, it'll ultimately get back to me. I'm always open to help however I can, especially to advance for us Black and brown folks and folks of color. I do want to say this to end though, Chris. A lot of the times we talk about Blacks in technology. And I did some reflecting over the last month of February because of Black History Month. And I had said that I know we celebrate Blacks every year or every day, and more particularly in February because of the month. But if you look at what we contribute to technology, Black women, how influential they are online. If you look at Black founders and executives, how they have to maintain resilience to be able to exist in this space. If you look at Black culture, that is the muse of technology, Black music that provides a soundtrack for technology. And once you start to lay those things out, you realize that we aren't in technology, that we are technology, right? And that is important for us to understand. And once we understand that value that exists in who we are as a people, as a culture, we can be as disruptive as we'd like. And none of these spaces that they're creating online, whether it's in the metaverse or anything, it's nothing without our input, without our influence and our contribution. And we have to safeguard that because they're profiting from it. And it's our job to recognize it's happening and then stop it from happening.
Man, I'm so thankful that you are on the journey you're on because you help empower me and so many people to stay informed. That's why it's so important that we teach our children to reach out into every career field possible. And in fact, grab some technology while you're on the way, right? I like the words and I like the way you said it is we are technology. We are powering just about everything that is happening in this space and making everyone else rich. So thank you so much for your time tonight. Thank y'all for hanging in here with us. I am your guest host tonight, Mr. Seahan from the 850. And this has been Startup on the Blocks. Until next time, we will see y'all on the rebound. Peace.